Hi all, this is Skate, and this monster of a tank is the new FCM 50T, which is our first French tank in World of Tanks Blitz. I say monster of a tank purely because of the size of the thing. It is massive. Here's a quick size comparative for you to give you an idea. So we've got the FCM 50T. If we compare that to a T44, it's a hell of a difference in size. T44 isn't the biggest of medium tanks, granted. So if you compare it to something like an T59, still not the biggest, fair comment. So what about an STA1? Not the smallest tank in Blitz. It's massive, is the only way I can describe it. Biggest tier 8 tank so far, or biggest tier 8 medium, was the Centurion. Even that is small in comparison to the FCM 50T. In fact, just to give you an accurate size perspective on this tank, I decided to flick across to tier 10 and pull up a tank from there. And the closest thing I would say size-wise would be an E50M. Let me show you quickly. There. The size. I would even say it's a little bit bigger than the E50M. If you flick back again quickly, you can see what I'm getting at. The thing's huge. Now the reason for this is, in our PC counterpart, this is actually categorized as a heavy tank. In Blitz, it's been given much more mobility and is categorized as a medium tank. My opinion for this would be, in PC, as a heavy tank, this thing would be able to snipe. In Blitz, it wouldn't be able to. So it's not a brawling tank, it is a range tank. That's not to say it's a bad tank. I actually enjoy playing this, it's just an odd tank. Now, to counteract this size on this tank, it's got a massive, massive chunk of hit points. It's actually got 1,500 hit points. Gun-wise, I think it has a great gun. It's got 212mm of penetration on the standard rounds, and 259mm of penetration on the APCR. I'll go over the mobility afterwards. What I want to show you here quickly is the armor. It's got 112 on the front of the hull, and 120 on the front of the turret. What that basically means is the armor is garbage, but you'll notice the tank has a lot of funny angles on it. What that basically means is you get the strangest of bounces off it. Here's an example which my friend Ph3lan sent me. A KV-13 took a couple of shots and every single one bounced. Well, nearly everyone. His last shot goes in, but other than that, he bounced 2 or 3 shots off the front of this tank. I noticed this when I was playing as well. The front of the tank is so heavily angled, you can actually use it to your advantage to get the strangest of bounces off it. Notice the turret on this tank is very, very far forward on it, which basically means you can come around a corner, hide the majority of that massive hull, and leave it heavily angled. This scenario, obviously, defender's right in front of him, there's nothing he can do. But he gives a very good example by here now. You'll see he pulls up to the corner. The majority of it's hidden, which means he can just stick the turret and the front of the tank around the corner. If you watch this part very closely, you'll see the IS-6 shell bounce straight off the side of that front hull there. So the armor is bad, but if you angle it correctly, you'll be surprised at the bounces you get. I've had several shots bounce from Jag Tigers even off the front of this, just because of that front angle. But it needs a very, very aggressive front angle to do it. Very hard to do it reliably in my opinion, but it's worth constantly trying to do it because you will get the strangest of bounces. The last thing I'm going to show you before we get into the gameplay is the mobility of it. The reason I wanted to cover it last is because, as I've mentioned, probably a fair bit actually, is a lump of a tank. It is massive. It weighs 55 tons as well, but it has 1,000 brake horsepower. And it feels very slow when you drive it, but truth be told, it's not actually that slow. It's got a very, very good power to weight ratio, and it's got a top speed of 51 kilometers. Turret traverse speed comes in at 36, and the track traverse comes in at 40, so it's not slow at all. Which, with its weight, size and mobility, does actually make it a very good ramming tank. So if there's someone in front of you, very, very low health, save your ammunition, go and crash into them. Now you'll notice there is another FCM 50T driving around the screen with me. That tank is being driven by none other than our EU community coordinator, Ph3lan. Ph3lan works for Wargaming and obviously coordinates and deals with a lot of things in regards to World of Tanks Blitz, World of Warships, World of Tanks, everything basically. And to celebrate the first French tank in the game, we decided to go out and have a few platoons to test it. I personally was very, very excited to see French tanks come into World of Tanks Blitz. I love French tanks and I desperately can't wait until the ELC, AMX and the back chat join us. As you can probably tell from my accent, I'm not French, I just love French tanks, and I have been asked a lot where I am from. So, just for the record, I am from South Wales, and just for Brynd, who is our EU community manager at Wargaming, the way you say the longest place name in Europe is Llanfair, Pwllgwyngyth, Gogerich, Windrobl, Llantosilio, Gogogoch. Blair! As you can tell, my other half approves of my Welsh. That snippet I had to put in there for Brynd because he said the words, "I dare you to." So there it is for you, my friend. Just to keep that tank related though, that is the most ridiculous name and it is the longest name in Europe, but to keep it tank related, it's actually only across the bridge from a town called Carnarvon. So yeah, even managed to make it relevant. Anyway, back on topic. I had the honour of obviously platooning with FCM from Wargaming. And if you think anything like me, I had this idea in my head that Wargaming employees would be completely overpowered and would absolutely own it at any Wargaming game. In regards to World of Tanks Blitz, that's not the case. Truth be told, they are completely human like the rest of us. Now that is hard to believe, I am aware, but Wargaming employees, they are still human. And I am so getting in trouble for these comments. But the reason I mention this is because most of them are PC gamers. Now, if any of you have come from playing PC games to playing on a tablet, the controls are very, very alien and very hard to get used to. So if you ask someone like FCM anything about any tank, he knows his stuff, he knows everything about them. But controls on the game are something they are not used to yet. That being said though, we still had a barrel of laughs playing. This would be myself and FCM testing out the FCM 50T. As I have said, it's not a brawling medium tank, so I'd actually say play it second line or long range at first, and then, well, once the enemy's low, you can use your massive health pool to then go in head first. So at this point in time, we decided to stay in the bush by here to see if we could spot anybody first. Some unbeknown reason though, a stupid red T-54 decided to pop around right by here. Dumbest place I've seen someone come out, and FCM gets a lovely ammo rack on him straight away. I was wetting myself when that happened, if I'm honest, and I can guarantee that T-54 is never going to come out that way again. The FCM 50T does have a .36 gun dispersion, which isn't the greatest, but as I said, it is designed for playing at a range, and my experience based on this is it feels a lot better than .36. It's got a brilliant rate of fire, it's got very, very high pen. You shoot, it hits the target, and if it doesn't hit, then, well, you're doing something wrong. Which you will see me do 1,000 times over in my replays. But this tank does have -8 degrees of gun depression, which isn't the greatest, but it is acceptable. It means you can use the terrain to your advantage to try and hide the tank as much as possible, while dishing out your damage. At this part in time, I can only see the top of the turret of that T-44 over there, and I do actually manage to hit him several times. I said it is listed as .36 gun dispersion, but it really doesn't feel like that to me in all honesty. The gun on this tank is the selling point for me. I really like this gun, it's a really good gun. The major selling point, truth be told, was the fact it was the first French tank, and it's a premium tank, and I'm a tank hoarder. As at this point in time, which I have to turn around, I noticed FCM is being attacked by a Jag Tiger and an AT-15. Turn around to help and try and distract the AT-15. And for some stupid reason, I know the Jag Tiger's there, but I decide the best thing to do is to get behind this AT-15. Now, that does mean the Jag Tiger gets a shot straight into the front of me. I panic and then try and get back into cover by here from the Jag Tiger, while still trying to get shots into that AT-15. FCM at this point in time is keeping the AT-15 tracked then, so I could get around the back of him and get into cover from that Jag Tiger. At this point in time though, I'm around the side of the castle, so the Jag Tiger goes and kills FCM because obviously he's the easier shot than me around by here, and he was a one shot to kill him. Now, although the tank's a monster in size, I can still use the terrain by here to protect myself from the Jag Tiger. But even so, prime example of what I was explaining earlier, as I was pulling back, he bounces straight off the front of my hull. This was one of the first games that we played in the FCM 50Ts, so I think it went well overall. It does make pretty good credits. It's not bad on a credit front, but it's not amazing for a premium tank. It was not amazing in comparison to some of the current premium tanks. The T-34 Tier 8 premium tank and the Lerva are by far much better in regards to premium potential. But that being said, this is probably on par with something like the IS-6, and I'd probably say it's a little bit better than the Defender. This is only off my experience I say this, but I'd say that's probably a fair assessment. By here is another good example of the accuracy of this tank. There is an FCM 50T up there with very little of him showing, and still managed to get a shot into his cupola. Now, I'm more to the left, Ph3lan and two other tanks are on the right, and as a result, that tank is getting shot from all angles and obviously died very quickly as a result. Not much action by here, but this does give you an idea of the mobility of it. We are travelling slightly uphill, and it's still going probably as well as that Indian Panzer. Stupid shot by me, but at least I tracked him. I have no idea what shot me at that point in time, in all honesty. I think it was the T-44 over there, but backing off as a result. And you can side scrape a little bit in this tank. Obviously you can't get much more on that T-29 though, because he is being blocked from all angles. But I can get that one. I've fitted a rammer, vertical stabilizers and gun lane drive to this tank, and it's very good at pulling off quick shots. And with the setup I've got on it, it has a very good rate of fire. I think it must bring the rate of fire up to around, it's got to be around 10.5 with the provisions and the rammer fitted. And, well, we make quick work of this T-44 as a result. Also note where I'm trying to shoot the T-44 in that corner. That's where the ammo rack is located on a T-44. Now, it doesn't work for me in this example, but just so you're aware, basically. You'll also note I'm just sticking the turret and the front of the tank around that corner then, as my friend Precy was earlier in this video. It's the best way to try and deflect some shots. At this point in time now, obviously we are going to win. It is just a case of clearing up. And again, another little size comparison. Look how small the Spic looks in comparison to this. We're only going to get one or two shots onto that IS-3 now, and then it is end of the game. A lot of tanks in that scenario there, you tend to find that you have to stop to try and aim. In that one then I didn't have to. And for some unbeknown reason to me, the IS-3 decides suicide is the best option, so I decide a little quick roll over his corpse is the best shout to end the game. Now in this video I decided the best idea was to just give you two average gameplays so you could get a feel for what you think the tank is like yourself. Again, another 2,600 game, but 55,000 credits. Because of the high penetration on this tank, you don't need to use the APCR as often as you would on other tanks like the older gun on the IS-6, and as a result you can actually save a lot of credits using this. So, here's another thing I noticed as well. I don't know if it's the same in other regions, but the bundle, according to my store, costs $25.99 and comes with the FCM 50T, obviously garage slot, the 2 camos, and 100,000 silver. That's $25.99. The FCM 50T by itself, with a garage slot, is $18.99. And then obviously you've got your legendary camos for $4.99. Plus 50,000 credits each. But the one thing I've noticed here is the credits separately, or sorry, the camos separately also come with 2,000 gold each. In short, what that basically means is if you buy the bundle, it comes without the 4,000 gold in total, which costs, well, effectively £26. If you buy it all separately, it'll cost you effectively £29, but you get 4,000 gold. So for the sake of £3 difference, you get 4,000 gold. Usually, 4,000 gold, in the UK anyway, would cost over double that. In fact, if we have a quick look, the $7.99, so £8 bundle on the store, only comes with 2,900 gold. Again, this is only my observation, but it is definitely worthwhile doing that way. I certainly did it that way anyway. You may spend that little bit extra, but you get more for your money that way. That's everything for this video. Obviously make your own mind up on the FCM 50T. I personally bought it. I think it's a good tank. And that's me signing out.